Chapter 6. 20 minutes in, and the board were wrapping up their discourse on a recent security breach. An old, rather notorious string of coding, the offshore negatives, had been stolen in what initially had looked like an act of industrial espionage. It turned out not to have been a competitor, after all, but a terrorist group, not the car bomb and suicide vest types. These two were cyber terrorists, shutting critical infrastructures down and coercing the consumer population. Most of these malcontents had been captured during the private wars and dismissed to the RMZ, but small pockets of agitators remained at large. They had detained one of the agents, but the other was still on the loose. The offshore negatives remained compromised, but the board seemed to have reached a consensus about how to move forward. Houston steered them into action. Okay, at this point now I will entertain a motion for this presentation. Is there a motion? Jungian Peary, the Director of Digital Profits, stuck his hand up. Is there a second? Second? Kat Ehrenheim, Chief of Global Trends and Futuring. And promptly moving from the second, is there any more discussion? If not, all in favour, please indicate by saying aye. The dull chorus of aye. Any opposed? The motion is passed. Jolanta, you'll be taking point on this issue from here on. It's all yours. He dabbed his bald head with an oversized handkerchief and squinted at the projection in front of him. Our next item concerns the quality story that broke in October. I'm sure the Legal Teagle team has kept you all abreast. One of our subsidiaries, Flak Steel, were caught falsifying information on items sold to several companies, mass car and autoplane parts, unqualified inspectors vetting vehicles for their final checks, faked data. Glad to hear we've kept the number of recalled vehicles down to 3 million. These units will be back on the market soon. He looked over to the man further down the table, wearing gold and cobalt to accentuate the darkness of his complexion. Cordelian, put some meat on the bones for us. The Chief Operating Officer presented the communications strategy for this scandal, a comprehensive campaign to promote the company's responsible behaviour and long record of success. Houston moved the meeting along. Okay, so we're staying focused on the brand. The short-term bottom line can wait. Now, Jolanta, I understand you're sitting on an environmental disaster management committee? That's correct. Platform on biological diversity. And you have some recommendations for acquisition? Absolutely. We've got a new R&D field opening up in the northern latitudes. Rising global temperatures have virtually thawed out the permafrost. Less than 3% of exposed land remains frozen, and that is projected to thaw in the next 5 years. She projected an image of the globe onto the table, the permafrost regions delineated around the top. Biological material, frozen for thousands of years, is thawing for the first time in modern human history. Obviously, more research is needed. We only had a limited picture of what new, or rather old, materials are becoming available. We don't want to miss a chance to capitalise on any discoveries. What sort of materials are we talking about? Could be anything from minerals to microbes. Purely speculative at this point. The Platform on Biological Diversity believes that a recent mass mortality on the Asian tundra was the direct result of an ancient virus. Over 250,000 cawthorn deer died this summer. Nearly the entire species wiped out. The working theory is that the ancient mammalian corpses, previously locked in the ice, bore some kind of dormant virus. Upon thawing out, the virus transmitted to the modern species of deer who lacked immunity. There's a severe paucity of data, I've sent you all a portfolio of R&D companies that I suggest we acquire. My friends, there's a new frontier in the north, and we need some skin in the game. Houston pointed at the chief of global trends and futuring, sitting over the table from him. Yes, Kat, what are you wondering? So, viruses, bacteria, we're talking pharmaceuticals? Yolanta nodded. Are we looking at bioweaponry? We already have considerable assets in that field. Yes, quite. As it happens, the soil is releasing strains of anthrax we've not seen before. Who knows what else is out there? She looked over to the Director of Digital Profits. We're also looking into gas and mineral deposits. Surveys were conducted decades ago, but without the ice, we may discover all sorts we've overlooked. The board zipped along in this manner for another half an hour before Houston brought the gavel down and adjourned the meeting. Keen to commence their next appointment, the chair and two other directors promptly vanished as they closed their projections. Cordelian and Jurian took a minute to clarify some production quotas at an industrial plant, where they'd meet again in just a minute, whilst Pascal and Yolanta held eye contact across the table. The two lovers sat in oscillating silence. The others brought their discussion to a close, tapped their eye lines, and were gone. Pascal spoke. Once again, I struggle to find the right words. None seem up to the task. She barely moved a muscle. When in doubt, go for the truth. The truth, as it occurs to me now. He drew a long, noisy breath along his nostrils as he stared off into the middle distance. Is that my words are born of thought. So, it follows that this love I feel is greater even than thought. Who can say where its limits lie? A limitless love, then, she said. Pascal tried to reply, but the words caught in his throat. He relayed his approval with the slightest nod. Then came upon a single word, the only one for the moment. Divine, he said. Yolanta almost purred with satisfaction. There's a certain responsibility to being divine, choices to be made, directions taken. Tell me about it. Pascal raised a perfectly formed eyebrow. Take that stolen coding, the offshore negatives. It doesn't seem to me that the others appreciated their significance. No, agreed. It was all a bit of a formality. I don't think the board understand the risk they pose. I assume you said nothing for a reason. How well you know me. He closed his eyes and bathed in the moment before carrying on. Now that you're heading the investigation, we can, how to put it, inscribe our signatures upon events, yes? Once we've recouped the offshore negatives, I'd say you and I ought to begin our own development program. Another little side project, don't you think? Very sensible, my love. All in all, quite fortuitous that these cyber-terrorists have liberated the offshore negatives for us. See, they get some sort of remuneration, won't you? Yolanta gave him a wry grin. And while you're here, darling, that mass extinction event, those deer, the virus, I chose not to report every detail, you understand? He nodded. The board We'll hear about it soon enough. But we'll be ahead of the curve. You and I will steer the strategy. You have my undivided attention, Yolanta. We're looking at a zoonotic virus, animal to human, and now human to human transmission, sustained community-level outbreaks with a likelihood of widespread human infection. And this virus has wiped out an entire species already? It won't kill people. It barely affects our health. No fever. Nothing. You wouldn't even know you'd had it. It's virtually symptom-free. Virtually. That's where our margin comes in, my love. And what a margin it will be.